Hey everyone, VX here. Welcome to another Princess Connect video. This is episode 2 in the animation cancel series. Last episode I went over the core mages Ilya, Akari, Kyoka, Summer Kyaru, and Halloween Misaki. So if you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend you to check it out before this one. This one I'll be covering the rest of the mages, the secondary mages. That's Nanaka, this girl right here you're looking at, this cutie, Nanaka, NYui, Misato, and normal Kyaru. As a lot of you pointed out to me, Halloween Misaki is not a core mage like Nanaka is. I should have done Nanaka last video and Misaki this video, but I just forgot to do her last video. So that's who I'm going to cover today. After some feedback, I'll be doing the tutorial in a bit like a different format. I'll show the clip of the animation cancel first, and then I'll go into the replay and I'll break down frame by frame how the cancel is performed. So we're going to start with Nanaka. This is Nanaka's Stardust magic. It applies shred and looks like this. Okay, so as you saw there, Stardust magic is a projectile. She throws a little star towards the boss, and we call it the grenade in vanilla because the way she throws it, it kind of looks like she's got a grenade and she's throwing it up and towards the boss. So just like any other projectile, I should mention Nanaka's Stardust magic does not do any damage, it's just shred. So if you watch the first episode, it's kind of like Impish Kiss, where once it just lands on the boss, that's when the shred applies. The star, it lands at the boss's feet. It's going to land on the ground, so right there it's landing, and the shred applies basically once you see like a splash of color around here. So it looks like this. You see the stars coming out, more stars, and the shred applies basically right here. And you'll see if I go a frame further, there's the blue debuffs showing that the shred has applied. Basically once the star lands at the feet, it's a few frames after it lands actually, so you'll want to wait just a little bit until you see a splash of colors like this. Once you see that splash of colors, you can click and the shred will apply. So UBs. Nanaka Stardust magic is important because you want to UB with your other characters once you see Stardust magic. That's a common cancel to do. So if I have like Kyoka in this comp, for example, and the boss is almost full shred, and then Nanaka throws her Stardust magic and fully shreds the boss, the instant I see that star land, signaling the shred. So I'm going to rewind through this long animation. So once I see this, I would UB with Kyoka because that's when I know the shred is applied. Not a lot else to say. Next we'll go into Nanaka's energy impact. This is what it looks like. Okay, so energy impact is a projectile, just like Stardust magic. This time it's not a grenade, it goes straight at the boss And it's not really a lot to say. Once you see the projectile land on the boss, you see this, the number 8. That's when the damage has applied, the full damage, meaning that even though it just says 8, all the damage has already been applied. You see she's already life healed off the damage that she does. So right here, if I go a few frames back, you see the energy is about to land, and then boom, it lands. You see that first digit, and you can UB. I will say for projectiles, it's about kind of like predicting when it will land. So, you know, like just before you think it lands, you know, UB, and if you practice enough, you'll get it. Not really much else to say. Energy impact is, oh, one more thing. You see that there's this miss effect. Because energy impact is not really a punishing cancel to get wrong, meaning that you don't need to be frame perfect on it. Another way that you can do energy impact cancel is by looking for this miss text, because energy impact has the effect that inflicts stun to the boss, but of course bosses are immune to stun, so this stun effect will always miss. And if you are not that confident in your ability to cancel this, you can just react to the miss text, because usually in a clan battle there's going to be a lot of damage numbers around the boss, so you won't be able to know which damage number is your energy impact damage. But if you see the miss, that's most likely going to be your energy impact, because there's not a lot of effects that can miss in clan battle, and bosses don't usually have dodge. Next is Karyl. This is her skill 2, reduce armor. Looks like this. If you remember Impish Kiss, this is almost exactly the same, where it only applies shred. There's a little nuance though, which I'll cover later. Basically, once you see this little, black shadow ball hit the boss, that's when the shred is applied. The nuance is that, let me show when it applies. Right there, you see that it has the blue shield with a sword in it. That means physical defense shred. The skill 2 of Karyl applies physical defense shred and magical defense shred, but you notice that the magical defense shred comes out 1 frame later than the physical defense shred. So this means that in theory, if you try to be too esports with your Karyl cancel, she can, for example, if you be here on this frame, that would mean that you don't get that magical defense shred, and you only get the physical defense shred. So, just don't be too fast, I guess, but it doesn't really matter, I think, because Karyl is not a great character, to be honest. So you won't be using her that much, and because her UB is so low impact and her kit is only moderately useful, you don't really care about getting like frame perfect cancels on Karyl. I would say that Karyl is on the lower priority of cancels to know. So I'll show you the skill 1 next. That's the lightning sphere. That's what it looks like. I mean, it's a projectile. If you remember the Nanaka one, it's pretty similar. It goes in a upwards trajectory and it falls down. Once it lands on the boss right there, you see this lightning bolt shoot out, and that first digit of damage, that's when you can UB. Actually, UB'd late here. UB'd really late. Yui'd here on when you can see that second digit of damage coming out. Again, it doesn't really matter. One thing I do want to point out, which I'll show is after the UB, you see this second tick of damage, 2099, and that's the unique equipment. That's the AoE damage it applies and the magical defense shred. Basically, even though, right here if I go back, even though it only showed a 9, the first instance of damage, you can UB to cancel it, and that second instance of damage will automatically apply, like it's already through, and you don't need to worry about canceling it. Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Karyl is not a super important character to know frame perfect, so you know, don't be too greedy on being perfect on your cancels. If you are slow, it's fine. If you're a little slow, it's perfectly fine. I don't think you're being punished too much for you know, not being frame perfect on Karyl. Okay, next is New Year's Yui. This is her skill 2. This is the party-wide buff. Okay, this buff is kind of weird because it applies on kind of an unpredictable frame, meaning that it's kind of hard to get this consistently, you know, like frame perfect. But let me just show you the frame it applies first. As I go through, so you see her starting to stretch her arms out, and then once she raises up like this much, you see I have the this icon, meaning that she buffed the party magic defense or magic attack. So here it hasn't applied yet. She raises her arms a little bit more, boom, it applies. I would say that this one is just a lot of practice in getting a feel for the timing. Important to know for, you know, you being with your other characters, once you see this buff has applied, I keep going back to the example of, you know, Kyoka. You know, you might see this Yui buff apply, like you see Yui in this stance, and you'll know that everyone is buffed, and then you can UB with your Kyoka then. This is not the most useful cancel to know for Yui. That's actually the next cancel, which is fully canceling the skill 1. The skill 1 is a skill that reduces the physical and magical attack of a boss, and because clan battle players are, you know, a bit you know, they're a bit masochistic, they like taking damage, we are going to use the full cancel of the skill 1 very often. This is what it looks like. Okay, so if you remember how we did Kyoka's buff cancel, New Year Yui, the skilled 1 full cancel is very similar in that rather than watching for the skill text to pop up, since we want a frame perfect cancel, rather than watching for her skill to start, we instead watch for her idle animation to end. So I'll show you what her idle animation looks like. She's doing her buff first, and now she's in her idle animation. Basically what I do is I look at this left strand of hair, I guess it's her right strand of hair, and I watch it kind of like bouncing, right? So it's bouncing, it's now moving towards her face, towards the right. It's moving towards the right, and once it reaches this point right here, so I'm rewinding so I can show you again what that idle animation looks like. It moves towards her face, and at this point, like right here, as it gets closer and closer to her face, this point where it reaches all the way to the right, it's very subtle, but basically once it reaches all the way to the right of her face, it's very close to her eye here, as you can see. That's when she is casting her skill. That's when the idle animation ends. So you see, if I move to the next frame, she is starting weakening petals. That's the skill 1. And I UB then, instantly canceling the skill. This will speed up her animation a lot. And also I'm avoiding that debuff on the boss. The only debuff we like is a defense debuff. Everything else is trash, useless. One more piece of advice. If I go back here, you want to start, if you want to do a full cancel, you want to start paying attention before that. That's okay. You want to start paying attention to the character, the skill before the skill 1. So here I very carefully I watched her buff animation, and after that I'm kind of like staring at her hair, leaning in full Coomer mode. And once I see that hair reaching all the way over, that's when I know to click. That's when weakening petals starts, and I click my UBs. Next is Misato. Whoa, there's a lot of lag there. So Divine Force is a buff. The way I do it is basically once Misato turns a 3/4 circle right here, you see the buff icon displayed, and she's kind of facing to the right. She hasn't made a full turn yet. It's like just before her full turn. That's when the buff applies from Divine Force. And to illustrate, the orange arrows from the buff comes up during her UB animation. That's what I was talking about last video, but I couldn't pause and show it because I was trying to do it live. Misato, I wouldn't say this is not a super important skill to know for you being Misato. Usually you're going to do Misato in reaction to taking some damage from the boss. Like if the boss UBs you, that's when you are going to UB with Misato. You don't really care about speeding up Misato's animation cycle that much, or her skill cycle, I mean. But like all buffs, it's important to know for your other characters, right? So again, the Kyoka thing. If I see Misato in that turn position, when I see Misato is like, when I see Misato here, that's when I know the buff is applied, and then I could UB with Kyoka. This is really the Divine Force is really like the only important skill you need to know from Misato. Her other skill, I think it's Caring Cure, is even less important. But I'll show you. It's actually really funny, her Caring Cure, because if you notice, she's an idle. She's idling. She's idle, still an idle. Very long idle animation. Boom! She starts her Caring Cure, and if you see this icon right here, this is the regen icon, meaning that her regen has applied right now. So if I go a frame back, this is our idle animation. One frame forward, she's starting Caring Cure, and the regen has applied. What this means basically is that once you see the text Caring Cure come up, you can just be with Misato, because that's when the regen applies. And honestly, if you wanted to do a frame perfect Karen cure, you could look at the hair during her idol animation. Same thing like Kyoka and NYui. But again, Misato is not a character that you're being to speed up her animations. So it doesn't really matter. Just something funny to know. And that's about it for this video. So if you have any feedback, any questions, do leave them in the comment section. I read them all. Even I think last video I had 3 people just comment the word poggers. So yeah, if you watch to the end, leave me a comment, say poggers, so I know you watched to the end. And that's about it. See ya.